Ukrainian drones have just obliterated a $2.8 billion Russian missile production facility, one of the most significant and daring strikes of the entire war. The massive explosion tore through the heart of a key Russian defense plant overnight, lighting up the sky for miles. Videos flooding social media show the fireball erupting like a miniature sun, followed by secondary detonations as stockpiled missile parts and fuel ignited one after another. Russia's most advanced cruise missile production line has been reduced to ashes, and for the Kremlin, this attack is nothing short of catastrophic. Reports from inside Russia confirm that emergency response teams were overwhelmed, while local residents were ordered to evacuate as toxic smoke and debris spread across the region. Intelligence sources now believe this was a calculated Ukrainian operation aimed at crippling Russia's missile capabilities ahead of the winter campaign. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Please subscribe and like my videos. Now let's get into the full story behind this shocking event. The attack occurred in the early hours of the morning at approximately 3:45 a.m. local time. The target, a sprawling missile assembly complex located in Russia's Tatarstan region, was considered one of the most heavily protected industrial sites in the country. This facility wasn't just any factory, it was where Russia produced the Caliber and Kh-101 cruise missiles, the very same weapons used to devastate Ukrainian cities throughout the war. Ukrainian drones traveling over 700 kilometers managed to penetrate Russian airspace, avoid multiple layers of radar, and hit their mark with surgical precision. Analysts believe the strike involved long-range bomber drones and possibly the upgraded UJ-22A models, which have been modified for deep penetration missions inside Russia. According to multiple intelligence reports, at least 7 large drones hit the plant in succession. The first wave destroyed the radar and communications towers, effectively blinding local defenses. The second wave struck the fuel storage area, causing a chain reaction of explosions. Then came the third and final strike, massive precision-guided drones that hit the assembly hall directly, reducing the entire production line to molten metal. Satellite images released just hours after the attack show nothing but smoldering ruins where once stood one of Russia's most vital military facilities. Russian state media initially tried to downplay the attack, calling it a minor fire caused by an industrial malfunction. But that narrative collapsed when footage from locals surfaced online, showing shockwaves, flames towering hundreds of feet, and pieces of missile casings scattered across nearby villages. Telegram channels aligned with Russian military bloggers confirmed that the plant was indeed destroyed, calling it one of the most devastating blows to Russia's defense industry since the beginning of the invasion. This was not just another drone attack, it was a strategic masterstroke. Ukraine has long sought to target Russia's weapons supply chain, but reaching this deep into Russian territory marks a new era in warfare. For months, Kyiv's military intelligence had been gathering information about this particular plant. It was known that the facility was producing up to 40 long-range missiles per month, missiles that had been relentlessly used to strike energy infrastructure, hospitals, and residential areas across Ukraine. By eliminating the source, Ukraine has effectively slowed down Russia's capacity to wage long-range warfare. Sources close to Ukraine's defense ministry have hinted that the operation took months of planning. Satellite reconnaissance, resistance networks inside Russia, and advanced Western technology all played a role. Though Ukrainian officials have not publicly confirmed their involvement, as is typical with such covert missions, President Zelensky made a cryptic statement shortly after the news broke, saying, "When evil builds weapons of destruction, justice will always find a way to strike back." That statement alone was enough for analysts to understand Ukraine was behind this hit. The symbolism of this strike goes far beyond the immediate damage. It's a message, a psychological blow to Russia's leadership and its military-industrial complex. For years, Moscow has boasted about its invincible air defenses, its impenetrable shield that could detect anything entering Russian skies. Yet, this operation once again exposes just how vulnerable those systems truly are. Ukraine has now proven repeatedly that it can reach deep into Russian heartland targets that once seemed untouchable. The financial damage is staggering. Early estimates suggest losses of around $8 billion, factoring in not only the destroyed infrastructure, but also the halted production of missiles and critical technology. Russia will likely spend months, if not years, trying to recover from this single event. The loss of specialized machinery, trained engineers, and key electronic components, many of which were imported before sanctions, has crippled their ability to replace the destroyed inventory. Inside the Kremlin, panic reportedly spread through defense circles. Russian intelligence has already begun a sweeping internal investigation, searching for leaks or insider sabotage. Rumors suggest that several senior officials in charge of air defense were quietly dismissed within hours of the attack. One Russian military blogger called it the most humiliating failure of internal security since the war began. Meanwhile, Ukrainian social media erupted in celebration, with many users calling it revenge for the hundreds of missile strikes that have targeted Kyiv, Kharkiv, and Odessa. As investigators sift through the wreckage, Western intelligence agencies are carefully analyzing the type of drones used. Some experts believe this attack may have involved a new generation of long-range Ukrainian UAVs, possibly with Western guidance systems or AI-assisted targeting. The precision of the strike and its timing suggest it was coordinated using advanced satellite navigation and real-time surveillance data. If true, this means Ukraine's drone program has evolved to the level of a modern Air Force capability without even using manned aircraft. The Russian Ministry of Defense, embarrassed by the scale of the destruction, immediately vowed retaliation. Moscow officials claimed they would respond with massive missile strikes against Ukrainian infrastructure. However, with one of their key production sites now destroyed, those threats ring hollow. Even if Russia ramps up attacks, its missile stockpile is already dwindling. Ukraine's timing for this strike couldn't have been more precise right before the onset of winter, when Russia typically intensifies energy grid attacks to freeze out Ukrainian civilians. This move also shifts the psychological dynamics of the war. It demonstrates Ukraine's growing ability to take the fight directly to Russia, undermining the myth of Moscow's invulnerability. For the Russian public, it's another shock to morale. State television has struggled to explain how Ukrainian drones could reach so far inland, past multiple layers of radar, past hundreds of kilometers of supposedly secure territory, and strike a high-altitude defense facility undetected. For many Russians, this attack has shattered the illusion that the war is distant. The explosions could be heard across entire districts. The glow in the sky was visible from miles away. For them, the war has suddenly come home. In Ukraine, the reaction has been electrifying. Social media feeds are filled with triumphant messages, patriotic songs, and emotional tributes to the engineers and soldiers who made the operation possible. The Ukrainian government, while maintaining official silence, has subtly encouraged this national pride, portraying the event as a turning point in the conflict. It reinforces Ukraine's message to its allies that advanced weaponry and continued support are producing real, tangible results on the battlefield. For Western nations, this strike underscores how effective Ukraine has become at adapting and innovating under pressure. Over the past year, Western allies have provided Ukraine with both technology and intelligence support, though always with careful wording to avoid direct involvement in attacks inside Russia. But the success of this operation may prompt further cooperation, as it clearly demonstrates how strategic deep strikes can neutralize Russia's offensive capabilities without direct NATO engagement. Economically, the consequences for Russia are massive. The destroyed plant was one of the few remaining facilities still capable of producing precision-guided missile components domestically. Since Western sanctions have cut off access to many imported parts, replacing what was lost will be almost impossible. Russia will now be forced to rely more heavily on imports from countries like Iran and North Korea, both of which have been supplying drones and missiles, but often of lower quality. That dependency deepens Moscow's isolation and weakens its negotiating position globally. Politically, the strike arrives at a delicate moment for the Kremlin. Putin has been preparing to showcase Russia's technological strength. at an upcoming defense exhibition where this very plant's production line was supposed to be featured. Instead, he now faces questions about why his multi-billion-ruble air defense network failed to stop a handful of drones. Opposition voices online, though quickly censored, have called the incident proof of the regime's incompetence. Meanwhile, Russian military commentators are openly admitting that the attack could delay missile production for months. Some even fear that Russia might run out of certain types of cruise missiles by early next year. That could drastically change the course of the war, especially if Ukraine continues to develop its long-range strike capability. Already, analysts are warning that more such deep strikes are likely in the coming weeks, targeting ammunition depots, oil refineries, and radar sites across Russia. For Ukraine, this success represents a psychological and strategic breakthrough. It's not just about the physical destruction of a factory. It's about proving that Russian defenses can be pierced, that their military machine can bleed. It also boosts morale across the country, giving people hope that the tide is finally turning after years of relentless bombardment. Ukrainian officials are already hinting that this operation is just the beginning of a new phase of warfare, one that will increasingly take place on Russian soil. Internationally, the attack has drawn mixed reactions. Some Western officials are quietly applauding Ukraine's boldness, while others express concern that such deep strikes could escalate the conflict further. Moscow has already summoned several Western ambassadors, accusing NATO of complicity and vowing revenge. However, experts point out that Russia has made similar threats before, and its capacity for escalation is now limited. The destruction of the $8 billion missile plant has exposed a critical truth. Russia's industrial base is far more fragile than its propaganda suggests. Decades of corruption, inefficiency, and reliance on imported technology have left its military infrastructure vulnerable. By contrast, Ukraine, smaller, poorer, and constantly under attack, has demonstrated resilience, innovation, and adaptability that few expected. Even within Russia's elite circles, there's growing unease. Business leaders and military insiders are questioning how secure their own facilities are. If Ukraine can hit one of the most guarded missile plants in the country, what's next? Oil refineries, naval shipyards, command centers. Each question further destabilizes the confidence that Putin's regime tries to project. As the fires at the plant continue to smolder, emergency teams are still struggling to extinguish the last pockets of burning fuel. The scale of the devastation is immense. Metal structures twisted like paper, entire hangars vaporized, and storage silos turned into craters. Experts estimate that it could take months just to clear the debris. The environmental impact is another looming crisis. Leaked chemicals, burning fuel, and heavy metals have contaminated local waterways, forcing nearby residents to flee the area. Meanwhile, across Ukraine, there's renewed determination. Soldiers on the front lines describe the attack as a morale booster, a sign that their sacrifices are paying off. This is justice. One Ukrainian commander said, "Every missile they made there was meant to kill our people. Now that factory is gone." As international attention turns to the aftermath, Russia finds itself in an increasingly defensive posture. Western intelligence sources confirm that Moscow is moving valuable assets further east, beyond drone range, indicating growing fear of future attacks. Satellite images have already shown convoys transporting sensitive materials away from high-risk regions. In the days ahead, analysts predict a wave of retaliatory rhetoric from Moscow, coupled with limited missile strikes against Ukrainian cities. But those strikes will likely do little to change the balance of power. The real impact of this operation lies in the message it sends, that Ukraine is not only surviving but evolving, capable of hitting the enemy where it hurts most. As we speak, discussions are already underway within NATO and European intelligence circles about the implications of this strike. It represents a turning point in modern warfare, a demonstration that drones, relatively cheap and unmanned, can achieve what once required massive air campaigns. This democratization of air power has changed the nature of conflict forever. In the coming weeks, the world will watch closely how Russia responds and whether Ukraine follows up with more deep strikes. But one thing is clear, the destruction of the $8 billion missile plant has rewritten the narrative of this war. Ukraine has shown that distance and defenses are no longer barriers, that even the mightiest military power can be humbled by precision, patience, and ingenuity. As smoke still rises from the ruins, one can't help but feel that this was more than just an explosion. It was a signal, a fiery declaration that the balance of power in this brutal war may finally be shifting. The question now is, how will Russia recover from a blow this deep, this costly, and this symbolic? The world waits for the next move.